Morning, Birmingham Unitarian Church. Good morning. Welcome to all, whether you're visiting us for the first time or have been here many times before. Whether you're joining us here in the sanctuary, remotely via Zoom, or watching this recording later, it's good to connect with you. By greeting our virtual neighbors, we build a bridge between online and in-person participants. First, we'll project on our screen the image of folks who are currently on Zoom, and if you're comfortable doing so, please turn on your cameras and give us a wave. Now, we who are here in the sanctuary are invited to turn to face the camera in the back and give the folks on Zoom a wave. Bless you. If you're with us in person, we invite you to join us for coffee and conversation in Hodis Hall after the service, and Hodis Hall is located to the left as you exit the sanctuary. And today we're also celebrating March birthdays, so if your birthday is any day in March, we hope you'll come up and we'll have a special song and we'll recognize you. If you're with us on Zoom, we invite you to stay on the Zoom call for virtual coffee hour right after the service ends. Whenever and however we connect with BUC, we are building this beloved community.
The campus of Birmingham Unitarian University. Sorry. It is? All right. Then let's try that with the right words this time. The campus of Birmingham Unitarian Church occupies the ancestral, traditional, and contemporary lands of the Anishinaabe Council of Three Fires, Ojibwe, Ottawa, and Potawatomi peoples. Bloomfield Hills is situated on land ceded in the 1807 Treaty of Detroit. We acknowledge Michigan's 12 federally recognized nations, native nations, as well as historic indigenous communities across Michigan. We also acknowledge those who were forcibly removed from their homelands, as well as indigenous individuals and communities who live here and now. We affirm indigenous sovereignty, history, and experiences.
Out of the darkness, light. Out of the light, warmth. Out of the warmth, joy. Out of the joy, togetherness. May this flame hold us for the time we are here with one another. I invite you now to rise in body or in spirit and join in singing hymn 301, Touch the Earth, Reach the Sky.
Touch the earth, reach the sky, walk on shores while spirits fly, over the ocean, over the land, our faith a quest to understand. Touch the earth, reach the sky, children ask the reasons why. In our lives the answers show, and by our love they learn and grow. touch the earth, reach the sky. All are born and all shall die. Life's a time left in between to follow a star, to build a dream. Touch the earth, reach the sky, hug the laughter, feel the cry. May we see where we can give, for this is what it means to live. Touch the earth, reach the sky, soar with courage ever high. Spirits joining as we fly to touch the earth, to reach the sky.
We gather here to seek the truth, to grow in love, to join in service, to celebrate life's beauty and find healing for its pain, to honor our kinship with each other and with the earth, to create a more compassionate world beginning with ourselves, to wonder at the mystery that gave us birth, to find courage for the journey's end, and to listen for the wisdom that guides us in the quietness of this moment.
Our story for today is adapted from a collection of stories called A Lamp in Every Quarter, and this one is And That Is Life. And it's by Janine K. Grossmeyer. On a day not so very long ago, in a place not so very far away, a grass seed lay waiting. All through the cold, dark days of winter, the seed waited, covered by a blanket of earth. In the spring, when the air was warmed by the sun and the land was watered by the rain, the seed began to grow. It grew roots deep into the earth. It grew a delicate pale green shoot up into the air. As the days went by, the shoot grew into a firm stalk, which waved in the hot summer breeze. It grew bright green leaves that opened up to the sunshine, and then grew darker green as the days went by. It grew and grew and grew until the seed was a tall stem of grass and was ready to make seeds of its own. In the fall, when the nights turned cool and the leaves on the trees flamed red and orange and gold, the grass plant knew it would soon be dying, and so it set free its seeds. They traveled on the wind, above field and stream and hill. Some of them slowly settled to the ground in a meadow, where they lay waiting, covered by a blanket of earth. And that is life. Now in that place, not so very far away, a small field mouse was looking for food. Winter was coming, and the mouse was hungry. He went here and he went there, sniffing his way through the meadow, ears perked, eyes open, whiskers quivering, careful and cautious always, for there are many creatures that will eat a mouse. And as he sniffed and nibbled and then sniffed some more, he found a few of those grass seeds that lay covered up by the blanket of earth. And so he dug them up, and he ate them. And that is life. Now in that place, not so very far away, a snake was hunting. Winter was coming, and she was hungry. She went here and she went there, gliding through the faded fallen leaves from the trees and tasting the air with flickings of her forked tongue. She tasted the scent of a mouse and followed the scent to the meadow. After a while, she found him. So she caught him, quick, in her jaws, and she ate him. And that is life. Now in the sky, high above this place, not so very far away, a hawk was searching. Winter was coming, and the hawk was hungry. He went there and he went here, soaring on the wind with outstretched wings, looking down to the earth far below. And at the edge of the meadow, he saw the snake gliding through the faded fallen leaves. So he folded his wings and plummeted straight down to the ground. And he caught that snake, snatch, in his fiercely curved claws, and he ate her. And that is life. The days went by, and in that place not so very far away, the sun no longer warmed the air. Instead of rain, snow fell. The last of the leaves fell from the trees. The grass froze and died. Winter had come. The hawk soared on outstretched wings, lifted high by the winter winds, hunting. But he was an old hawk. His wings did not beat so strongly as they used to. His eyes did not see so clearly. His hunts did not go well. One day, he plummeted to the earth for the last time, and he died. And that is life. The body of the hawk lay on the ground all winter long, covered by snow. When spring came, the sun warmed the air and the rain watered the land. Flies buzzed in the air. Ants scurried over the ground. Spring was here, and they were hungry. The ants and the flies found the body of the hawk. The flies laid their eggs in it, and the eggs hatched into maggots. The days went by, and the body of the hawk slowly disappeared, the flesh and feathers eaten by ants and maggots, the bones chewed on by small animals, and whatever was left provided food for bacteria and mold. In just a few weeks, the body of the hawk had completely melted back into the earth. And that is life. Now, in the earth where the hawk had melted, a seed lay waiting. As spring turned into summer, and as the sun warmed the air and the rain watered the land, the seed began to grow. It shot a pale shoot up into the air. It pushed roots deep into the earth, which made up the body of the hawk, who had eaten the snake, who had eaten the mouse, who had eaten the seeds. And that is life. So remember, in that place not so very far away, and in all the places all around, there is a sun, and there is rain. There are seeds and mice and snakes and hawks. There are ants and maggots and bacteria and mold. There are crocodiles and humans and plankton and daffodils and mushrooms. They all live and they all die. And that is the circle of life. At this time, we'll have our children and youth join us at the back of the sanctuary as we head off to our class.
Good morning. I have the pleasure of delivering to you the progress report on the pledge campaign, building our BUC community. As of the close of business last Friday, the end of February, the totals are that 89 members and friends of BUC have pledged $275,000 to the campaign. Applause would be appropriate. This is something that each of you who have pledged can take credit for. These are good numbers. The pledge total is slightly more than half of the goal, which is ambitious this year, but is within reach, and we have some momentum, the big mo. We have momentum. But it's important to not let that slow down. A reminder, the campaign this year is a little shorter in time, and we're halfway through it. So I need you to go back and reread some recent email, sort of like dusting off something that's got buried. The pledge forms were sent out by email this year rather than by postal service. So maybe that was something that you hadn't expected. So go back and look and see, because everyone's participation is important. I can also mention that 100% of the minister, the Board of Trustees, and the Stewardship Committee, all these people have made their pledge. 100%, imagine that. If you join them, you get the right to have a sticker on your name badge in a prominent position. So please keep that in mind. I'm also reminded to tell you about the activities that are occurring today to add an aspect of building the community. On the far end of the wall of the hall, Hodis Hall, on the wall are graphics of how many pledges have been received and the total dollar amount. There is a place where you can do origami. There is a place where there's building a giant jigsaw puzzle. And with a piece like this, you can color it in and find yourself in the big puzzle at BUC. There is also some kind of competitive game. I don't know what that is. But there might be prize money involved, I don't know. The Stewardship Committee has invited a few people to give a testimonial in support of the campaign. And today I want to introduce Sean Rooney. Sean is not a newcomer. He's well known to many of you. He's been here on the chancel as a worship associate. He also sings in the choir. And he and his wife, Claudia, have been members of BUC for 18 years. During that time, Sean has served on virtually every committee there is at BUC. And when his children were younger, they were involved, and Sean was involved in our E program. Sean is going to explain to you why BUC is a big part of his life.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Sean Rooney. I grew up in Sheridan. It's a small town in Michigan, very white, very Christian, and very conservative. As many of you can remember back in your high school days, it can be a especially challenging time. It was the same for me. My high school civics class created a whole new seating arrangement after an energetic and animated political discussion. The next day, everybody was sitting on one side of the classroom, and I was seated on the other. Also, during my teenage years, religion was a confusing and mysterious social norm. Many of my friends would go to church multiple times a week, and they would ask me to go with them. Once again, didn't work out. I would listen, ask some questions, and find out that I didn't fit in. And in one case, I was told by a friend, we could no longer be friends. After high school, I joined the Navy because jobs were scarce in the early 80s. I spent 2 years in training and finally ended up assigned to a submarine, the USS Richard B. Russell on the West Coast out of San Francisco. I spent the next 4 years working on the Dickie B, that's what we called her, the Dickie B, as an electrician. We completed 2 top-secret missions against the Soviet Union. In those 4 years, I had a couple of close friends that overlooked my liberal political views and religious beliefs, and we just agreed not to discuss them. In 1988, I fulfilled my obligation. I was discharged from the Navy, and I enrolled as a student at Michigan State University, pursuing a bachelor's degree in human physiology. I met Claudia, my wife, in 1989 at the Crossroads cafeteria through a mutual friend, and I spent the next year trying to find her again. Who knew that being an ex-submarine sailor with a massage therapy certification was a bit too scary for some single women? We got married in 1991 in the Catholic Church. We started a family and started taking our children to church. It quickly became clear that my ideas about religion and family didn't quite agree with the Catholic Church, and we began to look for some other options. That's when we found Unitarian Universalism. I was 35 years old. I can still recall the feeling that I felt after my first Unitarian Universalist service. I had finally found a religion that was open to many ways of seeing the world. And some of the people sitting next to me, the members of the church, had similar social and political beliefs that I had. And get this, if they didn't believe the same thing that I believed, we could discuss it. And they would still like me. Most of them, anyway. The point is that the first time in my life I felt at home socially, politically, and religiously at home. I want to thank each and every one of you from the bottom of my heart, all of you, for being here. You make it easier to meet the day knowing that we can find fellowship at BUC. There are people in Southeast Michigan right now looking for something, looking for someone. They're looking and searching. BUC can be that lighthouse in the storm for them, the peace amid the chaos, the inspiration in the cacophonous rhetoric. Claudia and I will be increasing our pledge this year, and thank you again for all that you are and for all that you allow us to be. Thank you.
The mission? All right. The mission of Birmingham Unitarian Church is to be a free and welcoming religious community that encourages lives of integrity, learning, service, and joy. One way we live out that mission is by giving half of our weekly collection plate to an nonprofit organization that shares our values and addresses needs in our communities. Our recipient for March is the Michigan Unitarian Universalist Social Justice Network, also known as MUSGIN. MUSGIN is a statewide network of Unitarian Universalist congregations, other faith communities, and partners working for social justice. BUC, and some of you individually, are valued members of this network. Mary Jo Ebert serves as the director, and Craig Stroop as the board treasurer. Mary Jo will tell us a little bit about the work of MUSGIN.
Good morning, everyone. Well, as Derek said, MUSGIN is a network of 25 UU congregations and fellowships across the state of Michigan. And through the network, we do things like disperse information about legislation that you may want to talk with your elected officials about. We also provide educational events and other ways for people to live their UU values out in the world. MUSGIN was started 22 years ago by George Lentz, any of you remember George from BUC, and Randy Block from Northwest UU, to create synergy in the work that congregations in Southeast Michigan were doing individually. And that is a key part of our mission to this day, except that now we are statewide. We have a recent example of this synergy. Did any of you see the news about the Wage Peace workshop that we've been publicizing? Well, that took place yesterday. We had over 140 people here at BUC and on Zoom attending a workshop presented by our own Julia Pulver, who's here today. The purpose of the workshop was to help people learn how to protest, how to make their views known in these times. This is a different climate now, and people are looking for ways to make their voices known without becoming violent, without compromising their values and other people's right to share their point of view. We had people from over a dozen UU churches across the state and Toledo. We had other faith communities, some nonprofit organizations, and a lot of individuals who are looking for this kind of guidance and learning. Our actions do make a difference for a range of social issues.
If people are starving in Sudan or SNAP benefits are being cut off in Michigan, it affects all of us in the world or in the web of life. That's what we're working for. We ask for your financial support today and pledge to put your money to good use. It does take funding to do this work. And I invite you to come talk to me during coffee hour if you'd like to learn a little bit more about Moose Gen. Thank you. The offering will now be received.
With gratitude, we dedicate this offering to the good work of our congregation and the Michigan UU Social Justice Network.
It could happen anytime. Tornado, earthquake, Armageddon. It could happen. Or sunshine, love, salvation. It could, you know. That's why we wake and look out. No guarantees in this life, but some bonuses, like morning, like right now, like noon, like evening, like right now. We hold each other in our hearts and minds with all our joys and all our sorrows. The joys and sorrows of the congregation that are shared with us this morning are these. We share the sad news that Carolyn Hall, member of BUC since 1961, died on February 14th at the age of 97. Carolyn was an artist who found as much joy creating works of art as she did sharing them with the world. Carolyn is described as both a doer and a leader who was loved for her generosity of spirit. A celebration of Carolyn's life will be held at 1 o'clock on Sunday, May 4th at the Birmingham Bloomfield Arts Center. From Mary Samal, Aniki Curvey died on Monday, February 24th. A native of Finland, she emigrated along with her then husband to Canada and later the United States. In this country, she worked as a therapist. Aniki was among the first to welcome Mary, a fellow immigrant, to BUC. Mary says she benefited greatly from her thoughtfulness, compassion, and kindness, and she's sure that she was not the only one. Aniki will be missed. Her family will host a celebration of life at the Finnish Center on March 9th at 2 o'clock. From Larry Larson. Larry Friedman is in ICU at Corwell Health Hospital in Troy with double pneumonia. The insertion of a feeding tube is likely early in the week. Larry asks, please keep our very beloved friend in your thoughts. From Art Hillman. He's grateful that his daughter had her damaged eye removed to deal with pain, hoping for fewer days at the hospital and doctor's offices. And a joy from Derek Harteshka. March 2nd, I hope it's a joy. March 2nd is the 30-year anniversary. It is a joy, right? March 2nd is the 30-year anniversary of the memorable first day with the slickest of moves, Derek falling down on his tush because of ice. Derek says, love is a treacherous sidewalk. We remember those experiencing losses and those facing health challenges. We pray in whatever way we pray for all those affected by war, by hatred, and violence. We pray for peace. The cares of the world are many. Even when the cares of the world weigh on us, may we find joy in our connections with each other and in the pleasures that life holds. Let us take care of one another and ourselves in all the ways we can. Let us make this a safe and welcoming place for all. As we hold each other in our hearts and minds with all our joys and all our sorrows, whether spoken or unspoken, let's take a moment to be quiet together. Now please join in singing hymn 1048, Ubi Caritas, where there is love, there is the divine spirit, which Abha will teach to us.
Ubi Caritas is an example of a Taizé, French origin prayer meditation through music. So it's a very short composition that is repeated and repeated until it feels meditative, until you feel yourself lose the things that are on your mind within. So we will sing it together as many times as it takes. And then we'll fade away before too long.
Ubi caritas et amor, ubi caritas Deus ibi est, ubi caritas et amor, ubi caritas Deus ibi
Our reading today is The Cost by Dorothy Monroe. Death is not too high a price to pay for having lived. Mountains never die, nor do the seas or the rocks or the endless sky. Through countless centuries of time, they stay eternal, deathless. Yet, they never live. If choice there were, I would not hesitate to choose mortality. Whatever fate demanded in return for life, I'd give. For never to have seen the fertile plains, nor heard the winds, nor felt the warm sun on the sands, beside the salty sea, nor touched the hands of those I love. Without these, all the gains of timelessness would not be worth one day of living and loving, come what may.
after reading that I was planning a sermon on the topic of mortality, a congregant asked me, "So, are you in favor?" And I replied, "On the whole, yes, I am in favor of mortality, except when death comes too soon or too late. I'm also in favor of being aware of our own mortality, and for me this means living without fear of death, recognizing life's finiteness, and appreciating the moments of our lives. Of course, most, if not all of us, have experienced losses, whether recent, distant, or anticipated. Mortality is real and causes grief. So it's understandable that we might try not to think about it. But I'm inviting you this morning into some thoughts about our own mortality and the mortality of our loved ones. Mary Oliver wrote, "To live in this world, you must be able to do 3 things: to love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing your own life depends on it, and when the time comes to let it go, to let it go." This applies not only to the other living things with whom we share this life, but to our own finite lives. This doesn't mean we don't fight for life. Perhaps it means that we fight for life all the more, knowing how precious it is. We live and love as if there were no tomorrow. We live and love come what may, and yet mortality is the price we pay for living. Whether or not there is any ongoingness of our lives, and even though we live on in the memories of those whose lives we have touched, our deaths mean the end of this life, the one we are now experiencing. Social commentator Barbara Ehrenreich, in a book titled Natural Causes, wrote, "You can think of death bitterly or with resignation, as a tragic interruption of your life, and take every possible measure to postpone it. Or more realistically, you can think of life as an interruption of an eternity of personal non-existence, and seize it as a brief opportunity to observe and interact with the living, ever-surprising world around us. Life is a brief opportunity." I often begin a memorial service with these words from an unknown author. "Let us be honest with death. Let us not pretend that it is less than it is. It is separation, it is sorrow, it is grief. But let us neither pretend that death is more than it is. As long as memory endures, their influence will be felt. It is not an end to love. Humanity's need for love from each of us is boundless. It is not an end to joy and laughter. Nothing would less honor a vibrant soul than to make our lives drab with excessive grief. Let us be honest with death, for in that honesty we will understand them better and ourselves more deeply." And I often end a memorial service with a variation on these words adapted from UU minister Maureen Kaloran. "Mindful of our own mortality and of the value of life, may we here and now resolve to live a little more closely to our values, to speak up for the things we believe in, to care a little more deeply for others, to risk a little more often, and on this day, may we tell someone very clearly that they are valued and they are loved. This is what we can do to honor our loved one." Mindful of our mortality and of the value of life. These go together. How will we live our lives mindful of our own mortality and of the value of life? Forrest Church, minister of All Souls Unitarian Church in New York City for 3 decades, preached and wrote extensively throughout his career about the intertwining themes of love and death, exploring our human responses to what he called the dual reality of being alive and having to die. In October 2006, he was diagnosed with esophageal cancer, which he was told was inoperable, and he was told he had only months to live. After successful surgery, followed by a recurrence of the cancer 18 months later, Forest Church died in September 2009. After his second diagnosis of terminal cancer, Church wrote his 25th book, titled Love and Death: My Journey Through the Valley of the Shadows. Church wrote, "There are so many instances in our daily lives when our fears stand in the way of our potential to love. How many ways we find to armor and protect ourselves. We sense the risk, of course. Every time we open ourselves up, every time we share ourselves with another, every time we commit ourselves to a cause or to a task that awaits our doing, we risk so very much. We risk disappointment. We risk failure. We risk being rebuffed or being embarrassed or being inadequate. And beyond these things, we risk the enormous pain of loss. For instance," he goes on, "however much we try, we cannot fully protect our loved ones from illness or death. However much we love them, we cannot insulate them from failure and disappointment. However much we would wish to, there are times when we are powerless to heal or save. We pay for love with pain, but love is worth the cost." As he faced the immediacy of his own death, Church provided some philosophical and theological musings, as well as some practical suggestions about how to live with that dual reality of being alive and having to die. He suggested that to be free to accept death is to be free, period. And he offered what he called hints, simple but profound, for tending to unfinished business in order to live fully and be free to accept death. First, begin here, where you are. So much of what we want, we have already. Second, begin now. You have everything you need, plus the bonus of today, one day more than you will have if you wait until tomorrow. And third, begin as you are. At your fingertips is a treasure trove of memories and dreams. Put one good memory together with one good dream, and you are ready to begin. Fourth, begin by doing what you can. No more, but also no less. You can't do the impossible, but so much is possible. So many of the things you haven't tried, you still can do. And fifth, begin with those who are closest to you. Invite them to give you a hand, and to lend you a hand, and to take your hand. And sixth, begin by turning the page. Today, you can open a new chapter of your life. If you are trapped in your story, stuck in place, botching the same old lines, revise the script. Seventh, begin by cleaning up your slate. Don't erase the past, but don't obsess over it. And eighth, begin by looking for new questions, not old answers. Answers close doors. Questions open them. Answers lock us in place. Questions lead us on adventures. The more questions we have, he says, the farther we can see. Ninth, begin with little regard for where your path may lead. Destinations are overrated and never what we imagine. Until life ends, no destination is final. In fact, he says the best destinations are those we look back upon as new beginnings. Invest your joy in the journey. And 10th, begin in the middle. Our lives will end mid-story, so why not begin there? The mantra that Church developed in the last years of his life was to do what you can, want what you have, and be who you are. Church's mantra is applicable to the whole of life. Do what you can, which may be more than you thought you could. Want what you have. Church described his wants as friends who love me, family who's helping me. I want the sun to come up and the day to be beautiful. And he knew he already had those things. Be who you are. Church said that this was probably the hardest part, to accept oneself and to live your life in such a way that it will prove to be worth dying for. In a blog post, Church wrote, "Knowing my time was limited focused my soul." Or, as Unitarian Universalist minister Richard Gilbert suggests, contemplation of death greatly intensifies our experience of life. Gilbert also pointed out that since there isn't much use in fearing death, one is better off fearing an inadequate life. Being honest with death helps us to be honest with life. Being honest with death, honest with ourselves and each other, offers us the opportunity to curate our lives, not just in retrospect, but in our living and in our dying. How do we want to live and how do we want to die? We human beings are mortal, and we know it. Whether long or short, our lives are finite, and our mortal lives are for living. Robert Ingersoll, a contemporary of Mark Twain, who was a popular lecturer in his time and was known as the Great Agnostic, wrote this: "Before the sublime mystery of life and spirit, the mystery of infinite space and endless time, we stand in reverent awe. This much we know. We are at least one phase of the immortality of life. The mighty stream of life flows on, and in this mighty stream, we too flow on, not lost, but eternally significant. The Spirit never betrays the person who trusts it. Physical life may be defeated, but life goes on. Character survives, goodness lives, and love is immortal. This much we know. We live with our own mortality and the mortality of those we love. Yet goodness lives and love is immortal." Now I invite you to rise in body or spirit and join in singing hymn number 6, "Just as Long as I Have Breath."
Just as long as I have breath, I must answer yes to life. Though the pain I made my way, still with hope I meet each day. If they ask what I did well, tell them I said yes to life. Just as long as vision lasts, I must answer yes to truth. In my dream and in my dark, always that elusive spark. If they ask what and pierced me through, still I kept on loving you. If they ask what I did best, tell them I said yes to love.
Between the dusk and dawn of our being, let us be brave and loving. In our little passage through the light, let us sustain and forward the human venture. In gentleness, in service, and in thought. May we live our lives fully and creatively so that we may be a blessing to ourselves, to each other, and to all those whose lives we touch. Please take a moment for reflection as you listen to the postlude.